Hi and welcome to another educational video by the Entropy System. I'm Win. When I was first diagnosed with DID, one of my friends suggested that I watch United States of Terra. And so I was desperate for anything that would help me feel more normal. So I watched the show. I powered through all 3 seasons, in fact, and by the end of it, I didn't feel positive or well portrayed or even like I could relate to this show. I just felt betrayed and scared about my own future. The more I think back on United States of Terra, the more upset I become. In order to fully unpack all my feelings about this show, it's going to take an entire video. So here we go. 5 reasons why I don't like United States of Terra. 1. I don't like Max. Max is Terra's husband, and he's depicted in a way that the audience is supposed to be in awe of his devotion and his love and all this stuff. He's a saint. Terra's so lucky to have him. Except she's not. He's definitely not the worst spouse someone could have, but I don't think I'd qualify him as a good husband or father. Right off the bat, in the first half of the pilot episode, Terra's sister comes over to pick Terra up for a pampered chef party and is distraught to find her alter T there instead. The sister starts to throw a fit, so Max takes her into the garage to talk her down. I wrote down the exact quote that he says to her because I thought it was important to get it just right. Look, nobody's trying to imply that you don't have the right to be angry. You do. We're all angry at the crazy. But I've been living with this for 17 years, married to it. You just take it to pampered chef parties. He doesn't say, hey sister, you're being kind of selfish, or if you're going to love Terra, you have to love all of Terra. Instead, he calms her down by saying, well, you think you've got it bad, try being in bed with it, ha ha ha. Later in season 1, Max decides to go on his own private personal mission to figure out Terra's trauma story. Never mind the fact that she doesn't remember this herself and that she explicitly told Max not to go digging around in her past. Trauma processing is a long and painful path and should not be taken on alone. But Max doesn't seem to know or care about this. Not only does he go and meet up with people from her past behind her back to figure out some of the trauma that happened to her, but he takes what he's learned, brings it to Terra, tells her, and then forces her to confront her rapist face to face. I'm sure you can imagine just how well that went for everyone. 2. I don't like Terra's alters. I'll list them in the order that we meet them in the show. First, we have T. She's a hypersexual 15-year-old who spends the family's money in abundance without permission. At one point, she also makes out with a high school boy. She throws tantrums, breaks things, steals the car, and will hook up with basically anyone she can. Buck identifies as a Vietnam veteran. The first time we encounter him, he's berating Terra's son with a slew of homophobic slurs and insults. In the same episode, he grabs a high school girl by her butt. Then he beats up Terra's daughter's boyfriend in front of the whole school. And that's just his first episode. Alice is the 1950s housewife archetype. She's emotionally manipulative, and the first time we see her, she physically assaults Terra's daughter in a public bathroom. These are the main alters, the ones who show up more often. Later, we're introduced to Gimme, who's an animal-like alter who breaks things, cusses at people, and pees on her dad. Chicken I'll give a break because she's a 5-year-old. Shoshana is an introject alter based on a psychologist that Terra admires. Honestly, for the most part, she's not that bad, but she is incredibly vain, to the point that on Terra's first day of going back to college, she just waltzes to the front of the classroom and starts lecturing until the actual professor shows up. Then there's Bryce, the evil alter. Remember him. I'll get back to him later. Now, I'm not saying that all systems have to have nice, loving, caring alters. I'm not saying that that's even realistic. I'm not saying that alters can't have flaws. I mean, they're people just like anybody else. However, Terra's alters are so over the top bad. There are almost no redeeming qualities about them, and all they do is cause pain for the family. If there's going to be a positive or even semi-positive depiction of DID, I'd like to think that things would have been more well-rounded and that we could have seen alters that maybe people enjoyed being around. Or at the very least, alters that didn't assault children. 3. I don't like Terra. In my eyes, Terra is just a bad person. Straight up. She's not a good mom. She puts the responsibility of taking care of her mental illness completely on the shoulder of her husband and her children. Children should never have to raise their parents, but Tara never once tries to take responsibility for her system's actions or apologizes about the way her alters treated her kids. She'll occasionally try to connect with her kids, if you could call it that. She'll wander sheepishly into her daughter's room and say, "Are you mad at me?" And her daughter will say yes, and so she'll wander sheepishly back out without trying to make any connection or ask her daughter how she's doing or anything like that. Her son is a lot more patient, but he visibly, in his eyes, is quite sad and lonely and just wants to connect with his mom, but he has to swallow it and be the adult in the relationship because his mother just won't. Even if you put the mental health stuff aside, she still fails. When she walks up and sees her daughter's boyfriend shoving her repeatedly against a tree, she doesn't walk over and rip the guy off her and say, "Leave my daughter alone." She looks at her daughter and says, "I didn't raise you to be pushed around by boys in pigtails." Way to victim shame your kid, Tara. She doesn't even pay close enough attention to figure out when her son is abusing Xanax or when her underage daughter opens a cam girl service out of her bedroom. She literally sits up in her room for hours popping balloons with her butt for men online, and Tara never once wanders into the room and thinks, "Oh, that's a lot of really weird noise happening for a lot of time. I should probably see what's going on in my daughter's room." Reason 4, the system sets a bad example. There is a thing that systems must take upon themselves called system responsibility. This is the idea that the action of one affects everyone, and everyone has to own the other's actions, be it good or not. If Kit comes out and yells at someone, I have to go and apologize to that person. If the littles are clumsy and drop something or break something, we're in charge of making sure that broken thing gets taken care of or paid for. Just because you're not the personality in the system that caused the problem doesn't mean you get a get out of jail free card. There is no semblance of this at all in Tara's system. It's a complete free-for-all. Even Tara doesn't make attempts at this. Whenever she's confronted about something an alter has done, she just brushes it off and says, "Oh, that wasn't me, that wasn't me." Even when her alters start sort of appearing to her and reaching out to her, she doesn't reach back. She doesn't try to connect with them in any way by leaving notes to one another. They have their own video diaries that they keep, but it doesn't seem like they ever go back and watch them or try to communicate with each other through them. It's just a personal way of expressing themselves. System responsibility is not always easy to achieve, but even systems who haven't had official proper treatment still know to work towards it. Are there exceptions? Yes, I'm sure there are. But again, this is a public portrayal of DID. The way that they're showing this chaotic mess of these bad people just going around and doing bad things, and nobody has to live with the repercussions except for her family. That's just an awful example to set. 5, the writing is dangerously lazy. Now that I've got all my issues with the characters out of the way, I want to talk about the bad effects of the show as a whole. Both in season 1 and season 3, Tara takes anti-anxiety medication in order to stop herself from switching. That's not how switching works. You can't take medication to get rid of your alters or stop them from showing up, and trying to suppress alters only makes things way more chaotic and leads to dysfunction. This show offering what looks like an out for people who don't want to deal with their alters only sets those people in a really dangerous situation. In the world full of media that has people with DID as serial killers, United States of Tara was supposed to be a sort of haven. Yes, everyone in the show is dysfunctional and weird, but at least it's semi-positive, right? I mean, Tara's got a job and a family. And it's the very idea that this show is seen as a positive portrayal that worries me. Showing a system with no system responsibility and having that seem like the norm is not okay. Having two supposedly decent parents forcing their children to cater to their own flaws and weaknesses is not okay. Yes, there are other shows who use these tropes to get views and make their material more interesting, but this can't be treated like other shows, or at least it shouldn't in my opinion. The writers seem to be wanting to make a positive thing from all this when they brought on a person who has DID as a consultant, but they just did so much wrong. It is possible to tell a compelling story with likable characters, or at least somehow differentiate good from bad if you're going to have them be bad. But the thing that absolutely puts the nail in the coffin for me is season 3. It was pretty obvious after season 1 that the writers were never actually expecting to get renewed. Season 1 was a bizarre string of events, but they were connected. They were going somewhere. Starting in season 2, it's all just random happenstance that maybe connects to one another, but more looks like it's just out there to top what they'd done before. In season 3, they absolutely weren't writing ahead, and you know that because you can see the exact episode where they found out they were going to get canceled. I knew nothing about that show going in, but the left turn that they took was so sharp that even I was like, whoa, apparently somebody just got the axe. Season 3 honestly started off pretty positive. Tara goes to college, she meets a psychology professor who doesn't believe the disorder is real, she sort of befriends him, he starts to learn the disorder is real. Positive stuff. But then they decide to scrap all of that and bring out Bryce, the evil, abusive alter. He sneaks shellfish into the professor's food to try to poison him since he knows he's deathly allergic. He kidnaps Tara's sister's newborn baby and goes on a bus ride with her before bringing her home just to show that he could. He goes around and murders all the alters, both in the headspace and also figuratively by stabbing and tearing apart their personal possessions in the outside world. Then he forces Tara to the back, takes over the body, and beats the crap out of her son. This show promised to be a haven from this stuff, and then at the end just throws all that nasty stereotype garbage out for everyone to see because they couldn't figure out how to wrap up the show anyway else. So at the end of it all, Tara is able to kill Bryce and return in control of her body. Apparently the alters are better at the end. They didn't actually die, so there's that. But her sister has decided to move far away because her child is no longer safe around Tara. Her children are both super scared of her and also are contemplating moving away so they never have to deal with Tara again. Tara's husband Max finally loses his cool, throws some food against the wall during a yelling fit, and the whole thing closes while he drives Tara to an inpatient because no one knows what else to do with her. So there you go, happy endings. The moral of the story is that DID makes everyone scared of you and ruins your life. As someone early on in my diagnosis, this made all of my fears explode exponentially. Was I never going to be able to be a healthy mother? Was this what my husband was going to think of me? Was I just a burden to all who were around me? Was I going to fail at every endeavor I tried? Honestly, I would have preferred to watch the serial killer crap because at least with that I can say, oh, that's definitely fiction. I'm not gonna murder anybody. But with the Tara thing, that was so close to real that I thought I was doomed. I was scared of myself. If you were to put Split and United States of Tara in front of me and ask which one I thought was the most damaging to the DID community, I'd say United States of Tara every time. I know that there are people who disagree with me, and I know that there are people who force themselves to see through the faults of the show because they are so desperate for positive representation, and I'm not trying to take that away from anybody. But this is a conversation that I haven't seen other people having, and so I wanted to get it started. If the only issues I had with this show were the fact that the transitions and the alters were totally overblown, I'd be fine with this show. It's all the other stuff that makes me so disappointed because I see so clearly what this show could have been. I know I didn't go through the exact same checklist as the previous DID and media video, and I'll go back to that checklist in the next one, but I think that I explained my feelings on this show well enough that I can say, Is United States of Terra a good representation of DID? No. No, it is not. I will take one moment to acknowledge the good things about Terra so people don't think that I'm being completely biased. Rather than the alters just being bad for the sake of being bad, it does show the external stimulus that causes the alters to act this way in their own attempts to be protective, as misguided as those attempts may be. They also dive into the idea of new alters being created in adult life. They explore child alters. They dive into trauma and show the direct links between alters' behavior and the trauma they came from in the past. They show an unhealthy family dynamic between Terra and her parents, which showcases the unstable connection she has with them, which would have been what allowed her to form the DID in the first place. They never once that I remember call it anything incorrect like split personality disorder. And they even talk about the fact that they used to be called multiple personality disorder, but they changed it to DID in the 90s. So those are the bonus points. Still don't like the show. What are your thoughts though? If you've seen United States of Terra, go ahead and tell me what you thought about it in the comments below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you all have a really great day. Bye!